After more than 3 decades, the wait is finally over. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, the unforgettable pair who gave us one of the most beloved love stories of all time, are back together. Yes, Pretty Woman 2 is officially happening, and fans around the world are buzzing with excitement. The fairy tale that started on Hollywood Boulevard is about to continue in a way no one thought possible. It feels almost impossible to believe, but it's true. Pretty Woman 2 is finally here. The news has sent shockwaves through Hollywood and stirred emotions among movie lovers who grew up watching Julia Roberts as the spirited Vivian and Richard Gere as the sophisticated Edward. For years, fans have been dreaming of a sequel, wondering what happened after that magical final scene with Edward climbing the fire escape to sweep Vivian off her feet. Now, after more than 30 years, those questions are about to be answered. The announcement came as a surprise, almost like a scene from the movies itself. Without much warning, studios dropped the news that Roberts and Gere had signed on to return. The timing feels perfect. Nostalgia has never been stronger, and audiences are hungry for stories that blend the magic of the past with the excitement of the present. And what could be more magical than seeing Julia Roberts and Richard Gere together again, stepping back into the roles that defined an entire era of romantic comedies? But this isn't just about a sequel. It's about revisiting a story that shaped how millions of people saw love on screen. Pretty Woman wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural phenomenon. Released in 1990, it made Julia Roberts a household name and gave Richard Gere one of his most memorable roles. The chemistry between the two actors was undeniable, and audiences were enchanted by the unusual love story of a wealthy businessman and a woman who refused to let circumstances define her worth. The film broke records, sparked endless discussions, and became a symbol of 90s Hollywood glamour. Now, the sequel arrives at a moment when fans are eager for something heartfelt and familiar. In an age where franchises and reboots dominate theaters, Pretty Woman 2 stands out as more than just a cash grab. This is a continuation of a story that still resonates with people more than 30 years later. It's a chance to reconnect with beloved characters, to see how their lives might have unfolded, and to rediscover the kind of romance that Hollywood rarely produces anymore. Julia Roberts herself once said she didn't think a sequel would ever happen because the original was so perfectly wrapped up. Richard Gere, too, had often laughed off the idea, saying that sometimes stories are better left untouched. But time changes perspectives. Audiences have grown, the world has changed, and now there is a new chapter to tell, one that honors the magic of the original while exploring what love looks like after decades of challenges, growth, and second chances. The buzz around the sequel isn't just about Roberts and Gere reuniting. It's about the emotions they bring with them. Both actors have matured, just like the fans who watched the first film in theaters. Seeing them together again isn't just about nostalgia, it's about reflecting on how love evolves with age, how relationships grow deeper, and how fairy tales can take on new meaning in different stages of life. It's no longer just the story of a man rescuing a woman or a woman transforming a man. It's the story of two people rediscovering each other, and perhaps themselves after years apart. This announcement has already ignited a wave of excitement across social media. Fans are sharing their favorite lines from the original film, replaying the balcony scene, and even debating what direction the sequel might take. Will Vivian and Edward still be together after all these years? Did they face hardships? Did their fairy tale stand the test of time? The speculation only fuels the anticipation, and every small detail released about the film is being devoured by eager audiences. In many ways, Pretty Woman 2 isn't just a movie release, it's an event. It marks the return of a story that defined an era, and it proves that some love stories never really end. They live on in the hearts of the audience, waiting for the right moment to continue. And now, that moment has arrived. To understand why Pretty Woman 2 is causing such a storm of excitement, we have to go back to where it all began, the spring of 1990. At the time, Julia Roberts was still an up-and-coming actress, not yet a global star. Richard Gere was already known in Hollywood, but was searching for a role that would redefine his career. No one could have predicted that when the two came together in Pretty Woman, they would create lightning in a bottle. a kind of chemistry that few movies ever capture. The story itself was simple yet powerful. Vivian, a young woman working on the streets of Los Angeles, meets Edward, a wealthy businessman, by pure chance. What begins as a business arrangement slowly evolves into a love story that defies stereotypes and expectations. It was not the traditional prince saves the prince's tale, nor was it just a romantic comedy. It was a story about transformation, respect, and the kind of connection that goes deeper than wealth or status. Julia Roberts' radiant smile and Richard Gere's quiet charm turned what could have been an ordinary movie into a worldwide sensation. When it premiered, critics had mixed reactions. Some dismissed it as a fairy tale too polished to be believable. But audiences saw something different. They saw hope. They saw the idea that love could cross boundaries and heal wounds. Within weeks, Pretty Woman became a global phenomenon, climbing box office charts and pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars. It wasn't just successful. It became one of the highest-grossing romantic comedies of all time. And more importantly, it became a cultural landmark. Julia Roberts, only 22 at the time, became a household name overnight. Her performance was so natural, so full of life, that audiences couldn't look away. The role earned her a Golden Globe and her second Academy Award nomination, launching her into superstardom. Richard Gere, too, found himself reintroduced to a new generation of fans. His role as Edward Lewis cemented his reputation as one of Hollywood's most elegant leading men. Together, they weren't just actors playing parts, they were Edward and Vivian. And their love story belonged to everyone who watched it. The movie's legacy grew with time. Its soundtrack, filled with unforgettable songs like Roy Orbison's "Oh, Pretty Woman," became part of pop culture history. Lines from the film turned into everyday references. Who can forget Vivian's triumphant "big mistake, big, huge," as she walked out of the boutique that refused her service? That single line became a symbol of empowerment, echoing through the years as one of the most quoted moments in film history. But the magic of Pretty Woman wasn't just in its script or performances. It was in the way it made people feel. For 2 hours, audiences were transported into a world where love wasn't defined by circumstances, but by choice. People laughed, cried, and rooted for two very different individuals to find their way to each other. And when Edward climbed that fire escape in the final scene, carrying roses and conquering his fear of heights to win Vivian's heart, the audience collectively sighed. It was the perfect ending to a perfect love story, or so we thought. Over the decades, the movie never really went away. New generations discovered it through VHS, DVD, streaming, and endless television reruns. Each time, the story resonated just as strongly. Couples watched it together and saw themselves reflected in Edward and Vivian's journey. Dreamers watched it and believed in second chances. Aspiring actors studied Roberts' performance as a masterclass in natural charm. And fashion lovers still point to Vivian's red gown and diamond necklace as one of the most iconic style moments in film history. What makes this legacy even more powerful is how Pretty Woman managed to balance fantasy with reality. It never shied away from the fact that Vivian came from hardship, or that Edward was emotionally guarded. Yet it gave us permission to believe that love could overcome those differences. It was a film about vulnerability, about daring to open yourself up to someone else, even when the world says it shouldn't work. That universal theme is why it remains timeless, and that is exactly why the announcement of Pretty Woman 2 is more than just Hollywood revisiting an old title. It's the continuation of a story that belongs not only to Roberts and Gere, but to the millions of fans who've carried Vivian and Edward in their hearts for more than 30 years. It's not simply about revisiting the past, it's about honoring the legacy of one of cinema's greatest love stories while exploring what it means for these characters to grow, to age, and to love again. When people hear that Pretty Woman is coming back, they don't just think about the film. They think about who they were when they first watched it. They think about the person they sat next to in the theater, the smile on Julia Roberts' face that lit up the screen, the thrill of seeing love win against the odds. That's the legacy. And that's the weight this sequel carries with it, the responsibility to remind us why we fell in love in the first place. Asterisk. When the words Pretty Woman 2 first appeared across news outlets and social media feeds, the reaction was instant. Gasps, cheers, disbelief. Fans weren't sure whether to trust it or not. Could it really be true? For decades, Julia Roberts and Richard Gere had both dismissed the idea of a sequel, insisting that the original was too perfect to be touched. And yet, here it was, the official announcement. Not rumors. Not speculation. Reality. Vivian and Edward would return to the screen. The reveal wasn't flashy or overdone. Instead, it was almost poetic. A simple teaser poster featuring the silhouettes of Vivian and Edward against the glow of Los Angeles city lights set the internet ablaze. No dialogue, no details, just an image that spoke volumes. It was enough to stir memories of the first time we saw Julia Roberts walking down Hollywood Boulevard, or Richard Gere leaning casually in his limousine. That single piece of artwork reminded us all of the magic we had experienced before, and hinted that the story wasn't finished, and then came the details, little by little. Julia Roberts had agreed to return as Vivian Ward, now a woman with decades of life experience behind her. Richard Gere, too, would reprise his role as Edward Lewis, no longer the closed-off businessman, but a man who had lived a lifetime of love, loss, and growth. The idea wasn't to recreate the past, but to show how two people who once changed each other's lives would reconnect in a world that had changed as much as they had. Hollywood insiders quickly began dissecting the possibilities. Would the film show Edward and Vivian still together after all these years, their relationship tested by the realities of life? Or would it tell the story of two people who had drifted apart, only to find their way back when destiny gave them a second chance? Whatever the direction, one thing was clear: this was no ordinary sequel. It wasn't a rehash of old ideas. It was a new chapter. Fans speculated endlessly about the plot. Some imagined Vivian as a successful businesswoman, perhaps running her own fashion line or charity, a nod to her transformation in the original film. Others pictured Edward stepping away from corporate life, seeking meaning beyond money, reflecting the lessons Vivian once taught him. The central theme, many guessed, would be rediscovery. Rediscovering love, rediscovering connection, rediscovering themselves. After all, the best love stories are not about perfection, they're about growth. The excitement grew even more when the director was announced. Though Gary Marshall, the beloved director of the original film, passed away in 2016, the studio confirmed that Pretty Woman 2 would be helmed by a filmmaker who had worked closely with Marshall during his career. This choice was no accident. It ensured that the sequel would carry the same warmth, humor, and heart that made the first film unforgettable, while still embracing the freshness needed to captivate a new generation. And let's not forget the supporting cast. While Roberts and Gere are the heart of the story, whispers began circulating about cameos and fresh faces. Could we see familiar characters from the original return? Maybe Kit DeLuca, Vivian's spirited best friend, older and wiser but just as bold? Or perhaps Barney, the kind-hearted hotel manager who believed in Vivian when no one else would? Bringing these beloved figures back could tie the sequel beautifully to its roots while opening doors for new characters to shape the next chapter. But what really made the announcement electrifying was how fans reacted. On social media, the hashtag #PrettyWoman2 trended worldwide within hours. People shared clips from the original, quoted their favorite lines, and posted emotional tributes about what the film meant to them. Younger audiences, many of whom had only seen the movie through streaming platforms, joined in too, curious to see what all the excitement was about. For some it was nostalgia. For others it was discovery. Together they formed a global community united by a single story. The industry itself also paid attention. Hollywood has been criticized for endless sequels and reboots that fail to capture the essence of their originals. But Pretty Woman 2 is different. This isn't about chasing trends. This is about giving fans something they never thought they'd get: closure, continuation, and maybe even new hope. It's about honoring a love story that was never really over, only paused. There is also something deeply symbolic about this sequel arriving now. The world has changed since 1990. Ideas of love, independence, and partnership have evolved. In bringing Vivian and Edward back, the film doesn't just tell their story, it holds up a mirror to ours. How do relationships grow after decades? Can fairy tales survive real life? And what does it mean to fall in love again when you already know how fragile life can be? These are questions that resonate across generations. Making Pretty Woman 2 more than a film, it's a reflection of love's timeless power to, as the official press release stated, some love stories never end. They simply wait for the right time to continue. That line alone sent chills through fans' hearts. And now, with Roberts and Gere walking hand in hand onto the set once again, the world is holding its breath. Because for more than 30 years, we've wondered what happened after that fire escape scene. Finally, we're about to find out, asterisk. The announcement of Pretty Woman 2 has not just reignited the story of Vivian and Edward, it has reignited something in us. This isn't just about a film returning after 3 decades. It's about revisiting a piece of our own lives. For those who watched the original back in 1990, this sequel feels like meeting an old friend you never thought you'd see again. For younger generations, it's an invitation to step into a love story that has stood the test of time, proving that even in an age of endless remakes, some tales carry a heart that can never be replaced. Think about it. The original film was more than a box office hit. It became a symbol of hope, transformation, and possibility. It told us that no matter where you come from, no matter what challenges you face, love can find you in the most unexpected places. Vivian wasn't defined by her past. Edward wasn't trapped by his walls. Together they broke free, showing us that love isn't about perfection, it's about acceptance. That's why the sequel feels so powerful. It isn't just the return of 2 characters, it's the return of those ideals we held on to. Even when life got messy. Now, with Pretty Woman 2, audiences are being asked to dream again, but this time with new wisdom. We all know that fairy tales don't stay frozen in time. Relationships take work, love evolves, and life throws challenges we never saw coming. And yet, there's beauty in that journey. The sequel promises not just to relive the magic of the first film, but to explore what happens when fairy tales meet reality. Can love still shine after years of storms? Can passion survive the weight of responsibility, loss, and change? These are questions that audiences today are hungry to see answered. The emotional weight of this moment is undeniable. Just picture it, Julia Roberts, now a seasoned actress with decades of success behind her, slipping once again into Vivian's shoes. Richard Gere, older, wiser, but still carrying that quiet strength, stepping back into Edward's world. Their chemistry, aged like fine wine, has the potential to hit even harder now than it did back then. It's no longer the story of 2 strangers falling in love, it's the story of 2 souls reuniting, carrying with them the scars and triumphs of a life lived. That is not only compelling, it's profoundly human. Hollywood has often been accused of overusing nostalgia, of dragging out franchises just to sell tickets. But here's the difference. Pretty Woman was never just a franchise. It was a singular moment in time, a one-of-a-kind story that refused to fade. Bringing it back after 30 years isn't a gimmick. It's a gift. A gift to those who laughed, cried, and believed in the story back then. A gift to new viewers who get to experience that magic for the first time on the big screen. And above all, a gift to cinema itself, reminding us what romance films are capable of when they're crafted with honesty and heart. But here's where you, the audience, come in. Because a love story is never complete without those who believe in it. The reason Pretty Woman became iconic wasn't just the performances or the script or the soundtrack. It was the audience. It was the millions of people who carried the story in their hearts, who quoted its lines, who replayed its moments again and again. This sequel exists because of decades of devotion, because of countless fans who never stopped asking, what happened next? So now the question is, are you ready? Are you ready to walk down memory lane while also stepping into something entirely new? Are you ready to see Vivian and Edward not just as the lovers who made us swoon in 1990, but as 2 people who have lived, struggled, and returned to show us that love is stronger than time itself? This isn't just another movie night. This is history being made. The world is waiting for that first trailer, That first glimpse of Julia's laugh, Richard's smile, and the undeniable electricity that made them unforgettable. Fans are already imagining the soundtrack, the wardrobe, the iconic lines that will soon join our collective memory. Will there be a new moment as powerful as Edward climbing the fire escape? Will there be a line as iconic as Big Mistake? Big, huge? The possibilities are endless, and that's what makes this moment so thrilling. As we count down to the release, it's clear that Pretty Woman 2 is more than entertainment. It's a chance to believe again in the kind of love stories that make our hearts race, our eyes tear up, and our spirits soar. It's a reminder that even after 30 years, some magic never fades. It only waits to return when we need it most. So let's celebrate this moment together. Share your favorite memory of the original. Rewatch the film and relive the joy, the laughter, the tears. And prepare yourself, because Julia Roberts and Richard Gere are stepping back into the roles that defined a generation.